If you saw part 1 of this video series, you're hopefully thinking, we have to get ourselves out of this mess caused by the speculative real estate market. You're in good company. We could very well be on the verge of building a widespread movement to create a very different relationship with land and housing, quite possibly through permanent real estate cooperatives. This video explains some of the insights that led to the permanent real estate cooperative model. So community land trusts have really led the way in demonstrating that the speculative market does not have to determine the fate of the places we cherish. Community land trusts are generally membership-based, mission-driven 501c3 nonprofits that acquire and hold title to land, and then they sell buildings on that land to people on the condition that the resale price for the buildings or units be capped to ensure that future occupants can afford to buy in. That's a really simplified explanation, but a key takeaway is that a bidding process doesn't determine what happens with land. People determine it. Of course, 501c3 nonprofits cannot be the only platform from which we work toward systemic change, because their purposes and use of resources are limited by 501c3 law. We need to bring as many people, as much capital, and as many opportunities as possible to bear on this transformation. So permanent real estate cooperatives will complement and often collaborate with community land trusts, and we've had a handful of other insights that give a distinct shape to permanent real estate cooperatives. First, decentralized control is key. If the fate of each parcel of land is no longer to be determined in a bidding process, then someone or something else will need to determine it, preferably by taking into account the highly localized and nuanced needs of communities, economies, and ecosystems. This will require an expert in those localized and nuanced needs, and if you look around for such an expert, you will find that that expert is none other than everyone. People everywhere naturally develop an enormous amount of knowledge about and affection for and motivation to care for the places where they live. So a central question in Sustainable Economies Law Center's work has been, how do we build power for everyone so that everyone can apply their special knowledge and affections to steward the places they live in and around? What structures will enable people to sense the needs of their own communities and ecosystems and respond by taking initiative, making decisions, and working together and with others? And how do we do all this at the same time that we enable people to coordinate at a broader and regional levels to serve the common good and ensure that society as a whole moves toward greater equity? It's a tall order, and it led us to questions of governance. Governance. I can't emphasize governance enough. Specifically, decentralized governance structures that abandon conventional hierarchies and distribute power. We've drawn a lot of insight from ways that communities around the world and throughout time have managed other resources like fisheries and grazing lands, learning from commons governance scholars like Eleanor Ostrom. We've also learned a lot from decentralized organizations emerging in recent decades. In sum, a key element of a permanent real estate cooperative is that it implements governance models that actively engage, train, and distribute power to as many people as possible. A second insight is that the permanent real estate cooperative model will only succeed if it is embedded in and actively builds a mass movement of people who reject participation in the highly unequal, unfair, and racist real estate market. If I'm a homeowner and I'm ready to reject the notion that my home should go to the highest bidder, then what good will it do if I'm alone in that resolution? I'd be far more resolute, and my impact will be more deeply felt if I'm among hundreds of thousands of people doing the same. And if I limit the returns on my housing investment in order to make housing affordable and accessible to others, then I need to be assured that I can still afford housing when I move elsewhere. So the movement needs to be large and widespread in order to be viable and fully transformative. This means that membership in a permanent real estate cooperative is not just for people who occupy the cooperative's real estate, it's for everyone who wants to be part of the movement. A third insight is that the permanent real estate cooperative movement can harness enormous amounts of capital from the wealth of our communities, largely because of the growing awareness that most of that wealth is currently invested in the wrong places, in disgusting places like fossil fuels and in other business models that drive extraction and exploitation. It all adds up to a growing collective aspiration to get our money the heck out of Wall Street and into local, sustainable, and equitable economies. Permanent real estate cooperatives are a critical container for divested funds. I picture putting my savings in a diverse portfolio of permanent real estate cooperatives and getting a modest return. The Sustainable Economies Law Center is working on various legal steps to expand sources of capital, which includes thinking through ways to set up a retirement investment custodian that allows people to self-direct their IRAs and 401ks into permanent real estate cooperatives. Ultimately, it's a far better deal than banks and conventional investments because sourcing capital from community members and then paying a small return to community members has the effect of building our whole community's wealth. A fourth insight is that a new and large workforce will have to emerge to support the unique needs of permanent real estate cooperatives. And for the most part, it won't come from the old guard of the real estate, construction, and property management industries. The goal of spreading power demands that the movement train its own support system from among the diverse communities involved. The internal structure of the cooperative staff teams will position each staff person to be directly responsible to the needs of cooperative members and to the bigger picture needs of the common good. It's a unique position, requiring that we move away from stifling hierarchical workplaces and implement values of equity and participatory governance throughout the organization. Training, empowering, and paying this new workforce can happen organically as the movement grows and raises capital, but it's worth mentioning now that if we want to catalyze a rapidly growing movement, this could be a wise place to focus philanthropic dollars. The way I see it, within our communities, we already have growing consciousness of the problems, we have people who are motivated to make change, we have access to capital, we have skills, but we don't yet have a lot of people with the time, training, and positioning to just jump in instantly and make sure all of this comes together in a coordinated way. We need to hire and train that brigade yesterday. Some final notes to fill out the picture. Permanent real estate cooperatives will be large organizations, which will help them grow a transformative movement, reinforce a sense of collective stewardship of the commons, harness community source capital, sustain long-term staffing, and create efficiencies of scale. While the cooperatives will ideally be large, their decentralized structures will enable members to participate and build many small, tight-knit communities under the larger cooperative umbrella. These communities could result in people eventually looking for land together or forming extended households together. Regardless, and this is the last insight I'll share, the goal of building community will be an end in and of itself for some cooperative members. As we collectively abandon the notion that the speculative real estate game is the way to build wealth and provide for ourselves, then our imaginations need to start filling the gap left by that notion. And we can fill it by building communities that have plans and resources in place to provide for us. Cooperatives create space where people come together and ask, what do we need and how can we meet that need? It might be housing, or it might be food, money, childcare, or elder care. In our predominant economic system, people meet those needs by getting jobs, earning money, and turning to commercial businesses to purchase goods and services. But in a cooperative, people turn to each other to meet those needs. It's a powerful shift in how we do things, and it's essential to a broader economic transformation that will make all of this possible.